Happy Sunday to you.
Well, happy Sunday to you as well, Teddy. How are
Thank you.
you?
I am doing wonderfully. I've had the best day ever yesterday in that there was no snow.
Right?
It was like 55 degrees.
Oh, yeah, it was so beautiful.
I saw a meme this week that said, when you realize that a little bit of sun comes out and you have the emotional depth of a daisy. And I was like, yeah, that's me. I just am
Yeah.
miserable all winter. And then as
Yeah.
soon as the sun comes out at all, I'm a happy camper once again. How about you? How's everything with you?
Good, just super busy.
Yeah.
Definitely over winter and over the snow and the yucky weather. And I say this every year, and I usually do break this, but I really mean it this year. When it is hot this summer, I promise I will not complain. I won't complain one time.
I'm going to hold you to that.
You can punch me in the face. Like if
I might not go that
if
far.
you're around me in the summer and I'm complaining that it's too hot, I give you permission. Punch me in the face. I mean, the Northeast had the worst winter, and it's not even over yet. But guess what's a good thing? Next week, well, it'll be already have happened.
It's like 70 degrees, right?
When that and daylight savings.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's going to be amazing.
So, it's a week from today. So it won't get dark until like 7 something.
Oh my
which
God.
I love.
Yeah, I really was never meant to live in the Northeast. I don't know how I got here, and I wish I could move away. But, my family ties are here, and I just, it's never going to happen. But if in a perfect world, I would be living in, like, I don't know, Southern California or Australia or something. I don't know, just someplace where it's always warm.
See, I love the 4 seasons.
I hate them.
I love the 4 seasons, but this is just too much. Like,
Yeah.
it's too much winter. But anyway.
Yeah, we are here today to talk about none of that. It's our final episode of the season.
Final episode of season 1.
It's our 10th episode, so anybody who's listening, thank you for hanging in there this far.
Yeah.
We are here today to talk about When Harry Met Sally, the legendary romantic comedy. I would say it's like the godfather of modern romantic comedies.
Really, really is. And it's been in the news, the past couple months, a little bit more than normal because of the untimely passing of Rob Reiner. Many people consider this to be his best movie, and there's a little bit of lore that goes along with it too, because it was not supposed to initially end the way that it did with them together. He met his wife. She convinced him to change the ending. Yeah.
I did not know that. It's super interesting because my basic take on the movie, I haven't seen it in years. Rewatching it, I was like, okay, they set up the premise in the very first few minutes that men and women cannot be friends because of the sex component. Mm-hmm. And Meg Ryan's argument against that is, yeah, they can. That's her whole argument. And then the rest of the movie, they just play out Billy Crystal's prophecy in a pretty linear fashion. It just happens. So it's kind of a surprising movie to me because there's not really that much conflict outside of just them bickering. It's just literally he sets up a theoretical premise and then they execute it in real life over the course of whatever it is, 20 years.
Right.
It just surprised me how direct it was. It went from point A to point B. There was not a bunch of C, D, E, F, and G. It was straight A to B.
Pretty much. Yeah, I hadn't seen it since I was probably pretty young, and I don't think I understood it at the time. A lot of things went over my head, but just to get it out of the way, because every person I told that we were going to do this episode, they're like, oh, are you going to recreate the famous scene? God. No, sorry, I'm not going to recreate the scene.
Neither am I.
But
I have thoughts about that scene. We'll get to that when we get to it. So what was your overall impression of the movie? You're rewatching it.
So I agree with you. It was pretty simplistic. It was more simple than, I guess, what I had in my mind.
Yeah.
Just talking about the conflict, I think one of the biggest, and it's like this trope that runs through a lot of different things, but it's like that type A versus type B personality, because she is very type A and rigid, and she has all these rules and things, and she's very methodical. Like when they first meet, she's driving. She's like, we can divide it up by time or mileage. And Billy Crystal's character is very go with the flow, very type B. He just kind of rolls with whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's at the heart of it, I guess that's the part that I didn't really remember or recognize, was that it was more of like a opposites attract personality type of thing. And we see that just so often.
Yeah. It's interesting because he is type B, but he's also extremely charismatic. I think this is probably Billy Crystal's best role that I can think of. And this is a question I had for one of my friends. They play him in the movie, they refer to him and that kind of thing as though he's very attractive. Would you
Yeah.
say that he is?
I don't think he is attractive whatsoever.
Interesting.
He's got the riz, though, as the kids say.
He has so much charisma in this movie. Again, given the time. I think
Right.
in modern contexts, he would probably be considered very cringe, but at the time, it seemed like that's his most charming. Same vibe as City Slickers,
Right.
where he's just kind of like the middle-aged guy who has an opinion about everything, and he's just able to kind of annoy her into loving him. He does a very good job with it. She does as well. I think they both are excellent in this movie. But yeah, they constantly are referring to like, oh, he's cute whenever the friends are talking. Like he's at
Right.
the bookstore and she's like, oh,
Right.
he's kind of cute. And she's like, you think so? And then she sort of comes around.
Yeah, and I think the appeal with him is his character is that he's very unfiltered. He tells the truth. And when you contrast that with a lot of other men out there who want to sugarcoat things and they're putting on an act to, try to get the girl, he's just putting it all out there and he's telling her exactly what he thinks. I think that's the refreshing thing about his character is that he isn't bullshitting. He actually says what he means and means what he says. And for example, the conversation about men and women being friends, he's extremely blunt, and that's why she's taken aback. Like, he's not lying, being like, oh, yes, they can. I feel like a lot of guys now would be like, oh, yes, they can. But he's like, no, they're always going to be thinking about sex. And she's like, well, what if they're unattractive or you're not attractive? And he's like, they still want to bone down with them.
Yeah.
You know? And she's like kind of shocked, like, really? Even if you don't think they're attractive?
Yeah.
He's just being like super honest, and I think that's what makes him stand out.
He comes across as very world weary, even in college.
Yeah.
And by contrast, she is extremely pathologically naive.
Yeah,
The
he even
whole-
says you never have any problems with anything. You're just like happy all the time,
Yeah.
and you're just like no conflict.
She lives in the hot woman bubble. She probably grew up wealthy, or at least wealthy enough, and just her whole life seems to be good things happen to her, and she assumes that they always will. And those people are so frustrating.
So one other thing that struck me overall about this movie is it takes place between, I think it's like 12 years. It starts in 1977. It came out in 89, so let's say 12 years. I'm a style person, a fashion person, so what struck me is they curate these looks very specifically for each time period. So in 1977, she's got like the feathered Farrah Fawcett hair, and he's wearing a very 70s, outfit. Then they meet a few years later, it's like early 80s, and then as they go through, I don't think if we were to look at pictures of ourselves from 2014, it wouldn't look that different. But to me, it just struck me as there's such a clear, I think when it came out, that would have been like haha, look at how we used to dress. But I don't think we have that.
Yeah, the decades, the 70s, 80s, 90s, 60s, 50s, all felt very more defined than anything
Yeah.
between 2000 and 2026. And I feel like that has made time pass faster for me. And there's certain things, right? Like when I was in the early 2000s, I was wearing very small glasses. That seemed to be a trend at the time. And
Yes.
now glasses are very big. There's just like little
Right.
things, but nothing dramatic the way that there is. You can immediately tell the difference between the 70s and 80s, at least in the movies. I don't know that I would have noticed the difference while I was living through it, but just looking back at it, it feels very distinct. I was fascinated by the fact that most of their clothes would be pretty well at home in today's world. The shoulder pads are a bit much, but aside from that, a lot of the clothes that they wear could be worn today with no changes whatsoever.
There were a lot of blazers, and I love a good blazer. Blazers are very big right now, so I agree. And actually, and it's funny because I don't know, are you watching Love Story, the JFK Jr. Carol and Bessette?
I'm not.
Okay, it's actually really good. It is a Ryan Murphy show, which I love Ryan Murphy. That whole aesthetic is coming back. The 90s minimalism, people are getting obsessed with that. Your favorite, the capsule wardrobe, is back.
90s minimalism, weren't the 90s like absolutely maximalist? It was
It depends on what part of the 90s.
a lot of jewelry, a lot of Like
Well,
loud colors and patterns.
but late 90s. Late
Okay.
90s, before the Y2K fashions, because then it got crazy again.
Oh, yeah.
But the supermodel off duty, Kate Moss, sort of, you talked about black t shirt and jeans, black shirt and jeans. Like, there's a lot of that. That's coming
Okay.
back.
Boo.
Yeah.
This is such a bunny trail. But one of the things that really bothers me about modern life is that every trend is a rehash of a previous trend
Right.
for the most part. There's just so much reuse rather
Yeah.
than somebody coming up with something new. I was expecting that we would have the silver shiny jumpsuits by now,
Right.
as Jerry Seinfeld predicted. And
I mean, you can
instead,
find them.
yeah, we're still wearing jeans and t-shirts the way they did in the 1940s.
True.
Nothing has changed in nearly 100 years. Back to the movie.
Back to the movie.
So they kind of frame the movie with these interviews with old couples who are not real people.
I had that in my notes too. Old people interviews is what I
Yeah.
put.
But what interests me is that one of the things that really underpins most romantic comedies is the belief in fate.
Yeah.
And that all things will work out if you just put yourself in the right place at the right time or whatever.
Right.
500 Days of Summer had that. The opening scene is this elderly couple who's been together for 50 years. They met and got married within 2 weeks of meeting,
Right.
and they've been together that long. And I'm just like, what an unrealistic expectation to start off with, but
Yeah.
so accurate for most romantic comedies where they just think that's how it works. It's magic. The fireworks shoot when you kiss, and in the case of 500 Days of Summer, it's a music video the first time you have sex. The universe is working to bring you two together, and
Right.
that just bothers me to no end. I hate that
Yeah.
so much. So we're starting off with the magic of The Lord of the Rings just transposed into romantic comedy. Anyway, Meg Ryan to me plays Sally so self-satisfied in the beginning. It's painful to watch.
Yeah.
She just kind of has this like I don't know how you
Yeah.
describe it. She's very smug, and she's always disagreeing with everything Harry says, but she never has any counter arguments other than just like, no, that's not true. I think Roger Ebert compared the movie to a Woody Allen movie, and it seems accurate because like the Billy Crystal character is literally just spouting off the whole movie and is always right.
You know, now that I think about it, it is very Woody Allen.
Woody Allen was huge at the time, right? This is the late 80s. I'm sure Rob Reiner was probably influenced by that. And also, you mentioned Rob Reiner's passing. You can't get past the dude's outstanding filmography. It's incredible. Princess Bride alone would
Yeah.
be legendary, but then he's got so many others. I mean, Spinal Tap, right? We don't need to list them all, but I just think this movie is emblematic of the fact that he was a master at the craft of making mainstream
Yeah.
movies. What was your impression of Meg Ryan's character as a whole?
I thought in the beginning she was very uptight. It's another kind of cliche thing. It's like the uptight person learns how to be more relaxed. They meet someone that makes them loosen up a little more. On the other hand, I kind of relate to her in her sort of overachieving, ambitious side.
Which is interesting, though, because they never show their careers.
Right.
They never mention anything outside of their relationship and their friendships with their two close friends. We never see them go to work. We never see them have hobbies outside of watching movies, which they do together.
Well, they always go to restaurant, and I feel like all of their, I guess it was intentional that their little like diner visits and stuff were kind of like checkpoints. That's kind of what moves the story forward, or these like conversations that they're having as they're at restaurants
Yeah.
eating.
There's no external stakes. The entire movie is their relationship and whether they're going to get together, which it feels like they are. Just that driving force is always there. So yeah, they're just having these conversations. I don't know if that has changed over the decades where a movie now couldn't survive on those kind of low stakes,
Yeah.
or if that's just me being addicted to doom scrolling on my phone or something and needing something that the movies at the time didn't need to have. I don't know.
I liked her character, though, overall. But it's interesting because I think the most depth, I guess, or emotional whatever that she shows is with that breakup situation she had with the one guy that she was with. And that's actually what gets them to sleep together, is that she's all upset because she finds out that he's marrying somebody else. And it's years later. That actually struck me as a little strange. Why do you care, like, all
Is
this
it years
time?
later?
I feel like it's years later.
Okay.
I think he's marrying somebody else and she's all in a tizzy about it. So, okay, the solution is that, like, they sleep together and then she's all happy and she's grinning ear to ear in bed and he's just kind of in a daze. Oh, what did I just do? but she gets over it like right away from sleeping with Billy Crystal. So I do find that interesting.
In case anyone hasn't seen the movie, which if you're listening, what are you doing? What you're saying is Sally was dating a guy for a long time. I don't remember if they were engaged. I think they were just dating. And then they break up because she realizes she wants a family and he does not.
Yes.
And she says for months and maybe years, if your timing is correct, that she's fine. Billy Crystal keeps asking her friends keep asking her, are you okay? Do you need to talk about it? And she's like, no, I'm fine. It was just we had a different opinion and different life goals, and that's it, and I'm okay. And then out of nowhere, she gets a call from this ex saying, I'm getting married, and she has a breakdown. She calls Harry over, and he mistakes sympathy for intimacy, and they sleep together, and then things go from there. I thought that was one of the most realistic things of the movie, where so many people, I was thinking of mostly women, but I'm sure guys do this too. It's happened to me in ways where you think you're fine, whether it's self-preservation or it is delusion or maybe a mix of those things, where you get out of a breakup and you think, yeah, I'm good. I did my grieving during the relationship. It was falling apart for a long time.
Yeah.
This happened to me with my last relationship where I thought I was good and ready to start dating. And so I started dating. And then a couple of times it came up in the dating process, like I was not as good as I thought I was. And there were things where I expected horrible things to happen because I was so used to the bad aspects of this relationship that I was expecting that to happen again. And it wasn't. And it was shocking to me and upsetting in ways that I couldn't really quantify. So I really related to the whole thing where she just suddenly has this catastrophic breakdown because it came out of left field for her. I wonder if she had been in a relationship, if it would have felt easier for her to take. They didn't say this, but I wonder if she's comparing herself to him and just being, well, why don't I have somebody? He found somebody so quickly. She might even said something along those lines when she's sobbing on Harry's shoulder. She's just like, I've not found my person. I'm just floundering, and he's off finding everything he wants. And of course, whenever you have an ex who is starting to do well, you get a whole mix of emotions that is really probably not super healthy. There's some aspect of most people, I think, that wants them to fail without you.
Right.
You want them to be like, oh, I can't get by without you, even if you don't want them back, which I think Harry points out, like, you don't want him, right? And she's like, no, I don't. I just can't handle this.
Yeah. I do think that was the most emotionally vulnerable and realistic. I think it's when she shows the most depth in the movie. But it is, to me, it was just interesting that it was like, oh, the breakdown was kind of delayed. I wanted to go back to that guy, though, and the whole thing with realizing that she wanted a family was brought up that no kids equals freedom. If you don't have kids, you're living this free life where you can jet off to Rome whenever you want or whatever.
Or have sex on the kitchen floor. And they never did either.
Yeah, and they never did it. And I think a lot of my friends who've decided, made the conscious decision not to have kids, they're always complaining, oh, everyone's asking me about it, I'm sick of defending myself. And fair enough, like, I hate when people are like, why aren't you having kids? Aren't you going to have kids? That's just annoying, right? But also, they also try to sell it really hard to people because my friends who've made that decision, they overcompensate. I have a friend who's like, I'm going out, blah, blah, blah. Can you do that? And I'm like, yeah, I can get a babysitter. Like, like it's not quite that dramatic. No, I'm very lucky. My son has always been super easy. But they kind of throw it in your face. Like, oh, we can go on trips. We can have sex on the kitchen floor whenever we want. But it does bring up the reality, but that's not necessarily there's just as many expectations with being childless as there is for having kids and trying to be the perfect parent. It's kind of a thing. And for some people, it becomes their whole personality. I don't have kids. I'm so much better. I know you don't watch Love is Blind.
Nope.
But it's very big right now, the new season. One of the couple's big thing is that the man very clearly wants to have kids. The fiance that he chose is on the fence, leaning toward maybe never because she has this birth defect and she's afraid she's going to pass it on. And they meet with her family. And her sister has 2 kids. And they're talking about it with the family like, yeah, this is a struggle. We don't know. And this is being posted a lot. The sister says, oh, don't get me wrong, I love my 2 kids, but if I went back, I wouldn't have kids. And people were dragging her because they're like, well, mostly because the kids are going to watch the show someday. And now they're going to hear their mom say like, oh no, I wouldn't do it because I would just rather go off and do whatever I want. So I think the expectations about that and how it can drive apart a couple who otherwise would be great for each other. To me, it seems like that was the only issue with them. Like everything else
Yeah.
seemed
But
okay.
that is a nuclear bomb issue. I've been in that situation multiple times now where the relationship was great, except for the fact that they wanted kids or the timing just didn't line up. And that's a life goal you can't just paper over.
True. But here's the thing, like I don't remember, does Harry ever say anything about kids or
No. Maybe we'll get to this at the end, but I don't think they would work long term. I think this is one of those things where the opposites attract but don't stick, is that I think their bickery sort of nature would not be very appealing long term. And I think the fact that he never mentions kids, and I don't think he'd be a great father.
Yeah.
Maybe he would, I don't know.
But they be in the twist, they become one of the old couples being interviewed.
Yeah.
But they're not old. But you're assuming from that, oh, they made it and they're this great couple that's destined to be together until they die.
I think
you're
they
saying
would
that's
be,
not realistic.
I think they'd be one of those couples that is constantly picking at each other, and everybody around them is just annoyed and is like, why don't you just break up? Because they're just constantly ragging.
Although I think I get the sense when they have the big talk at the New Year's Eve party and kind of like Professor Love or whatever, I do think though they've gotten to a point where they accept things about each other. He says basically, you're a pain in the ass, but I love it. I love all these things that could be considered annoying, but now I love them about you. I think she's kind of the same way.
When I heard him say that, and I knew that speech was coming because I remembered that about the movie, I think that is the delusion of a crush, where you look past their foibles and say, no, that's actually what I like, is all these things that are yellow and red flags. And they're small in this movie. It's the crease above your forehead when you look at me like I'm crazy. That's not going to drive anybody crazy. It's the fact that she constantly looks at him like he's crazy because they don't agree on anything. I think there's underlying fundamental issues that are going to be problematic for a couple like that. In a moment of passion, they can overlook, but eventually will be the cracks that start the breakup.
Well, that actually reminds me of that part in 500 Days of Summer, which we did a previous episode on. Go listen to it if you haven't already. I love that all the things in the beginning he said he loved about her, after they break up, he hates them about her. And they're the same things, right? She has this heart-shaped birthmark, and he's like, I hate the cockroach spot she has on her. Yeah, it's very dependent on how you feel about the person,
Right.
and how attracted you are.
What chemicals are flowing through your brain at what phase of the relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the other thing, though. Some people are addicted to toxicity, and they're addicted to conflict. And that's what makes them happy, unfortunately. I've definitely dated people who were used to toxicity and who were used to the push and pull and the conflict. And to them, because of maybe their childhood wounds or whatever, that meant love. And I come along and I'm a very healthy, grounded, for the most part. I'm an emotionally intelligent, grounded person who doesn't start conflict and drama for no reason. Very level-headed, not jealous.
Very humble, yeah.
Look, I never claim to be humble, but I think some people just can't handle that. For some people, they're like, oh, this must not be love because I'm not feeling all these dramatic things, or we're not fighting and we're not, especially like the jealousy thing. I dated several guys that kept talking about how their ex was like so jealous and taking their phone, and I'm not like that. And I think they were almost concerned by how not jealous I am. Like to them, jealousy means love, or jealousy means that you care. And I'm just not a jealous person. I don't know.
I've encountered that a number of times where people believe that if there's no jealousy, that means you're not invested at all. There has to be a small percentage of it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Because if you're not worried about this person ever leaving, then you must not care about them, is the theory. I don't know if it's accurate or not, but I do think that it's given me pause when people have mentioned that. I'm like, maybe there's something to that. As a teenager, I was a very jealous person. I was very protective of my girlfriend. I just was constantly worried about like what's going to happen. But I think it really stemmed from a place of my complete lack of self-worth, and just was like, well, every guy out there is better than me. So of course, anytime she meets someone, she's going to be tempted to leave me because she'll see what a piece of shit I am. I don't know where to fall on that spectrum. Obviously, that was too far in the extreme, but I do think there should be some part of you that doesn't want to lose this person.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And wants to fight for that.
But the other thing I have in my notes here is that again, maybe where some of the conflict comes into play or the tension or whatever is attracting. I didn't write down who said it. I guess it was him. That there are two categories of women, high maintenance women and low maintenance women.
Yeah.
What do you think about that as a guy?
Oh, you're definitely high maintenance.
I'm high maintenance? I think I'm so chill.
Yeah.
Why am I high maintenance? No, I'm not high maintenance.
I'm just kidding. The maintenance word is problematic for me. I don't love that. But I do think, for example, I have dated people who, if you want to think of it in just purely shallow terms, they're obsessed with their physical appearance. They take an hour and a half to get ready. Mm-hmm. They are never satisfied. The meal is not good enough. Her whole thing with ordering very specifically at every restaurant, which would drive me crazy, by the way.
Yeah, that was annoying about Meg Ryan, yeah.
There's that person on one end of the spectrum, and then on the other end is the person who can be ready in 5 minutes, doesn't really care if they look like a schlub, shows up to the restaurant and is like, whatever you bring me, I don't care. I'm not going to send it back. I think those are different people. Whether you want to call them, the maintenance thing feels very much like you're some sort of custodian for this person, which feels weird.
Right.
I don't love that,
right.
But I do think that there's a underlying principle that is accurate.
Yeah.
He shows throughout the whole movie he's extremely go with the flow, right? They get in the car on the college trip, and he just pulls a pile of grapes out from somewhere and is eating them and spitting the seeds out while she is disgusted because she has this very meticulous plan and he just doesn't seem to fit within that plan. And I think they really hammer home the point that when that trip is over, she says, well, have a nice life. Like, she clearly never wants to have anything to do with that kind of person ever again. And it isn't until their later years when she softens up a little bit and realizes how hard relationships can be that she starts to consider him. So yeah, I think his premise is accurate, even if the terminology is problematic.
Here's the thing, like, and I'm not even a rah-rah women's lib type person. However, it does kind of bother me that we only talk about people being high maintenance or low maintenance when they're women. I've never
Oh, there's
heard,
high maintenance guys. 100%.
I know, but people don't talk. I've never heard someone be like, oh, that guy is high maintenance or that guy's low maintenance. It's always women that they're saying it about. But there are men who are high maintenance and low maintenance.
Have you ever dated somebody who was high maintenance?
I've dated people who were particular. The high maintenance thing, you usually think like looks and physical appearance. Not in that way, because I don't think I could be with someone who's like prettier than me. The boyfriend I had for like 3.5 years, he was I think he had OCD or something. He was very particular about things, especially like with cleaning and everything. He was obsessively cleaning all the time. If I dropped one crumb on his kitchen floor, he was automatically vacuuming, like behind me. Just had really high standards for everything, and nothing was good enough. Like, I think I told the story of he had a mattress, and it was the best mattress for a week. And then, I hate this mattress. He was always trading things in for something better.
Yeah.
I think ultimately that's one of the things that broke us up was that, and I even accused him. I was like, are you going to do with me the same thing you did with your mattress, your stereo, because like, you're always looking for the next thing.
Yeah.
So in that way, he was high maintenance.
I had a friend. Mm-hmm. We don't talk much anymore, but they would text me multiple times a day and say, how are you? What are you doing? And I was just like, bro, I can't.
Just a friend?
I can't do this. Yeah, it was a dude friend.
Okay.
And I was like, I cannot do this. There's nothing in my life that is compelling enough for me to tell you what's happening multiple times a day.
It's a little extra.
I'm at work.
Right.
There's nothing exciting happening at work. I have nothing to report.
Yeah.
And you asked me this literally 3 hours ago.
Oh, that's weird.
It was very weird.
That's strange.
I had to have that conversation multiple times. And I think that difference between us is ultimately what led to us not talking so much anymore. This is like girlfriend stuff.
But I don't do that with really anything.
If a girlfriend did that to me, I would be like, yo, we're going to have to limit this to like one a day. I cannot do how are you multiple times a day. So yeah, I've encountered high maintenance men before. And again, that's not about looks. That's about the
attention,
interaction between you. Yeah. Like, it's just, you're too needy. Like, I can't.
Yeah, the validation. I think like there's definitely high maintenance for validation. Mm-hmm. You're the one doing all the maintenance for them because you're having to reassure them and validate them and answer a bunch of questions about how your day is. Like, that can be very energetically draining. And if you're not up for it, especially like if you're going through something or you're really busy at work or something, it's a lot to have to be conversely, on the other side. I've questioned myself whether I wasn't high maintenance enough because I'm like looking, and there's even books, Why Men Love Bitches or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I was getting so frustrated because I'm like, I'm a nice person. I'm supportive. I'm not crazy. I'm not jealous. And yet I'm just getting dismissed or, it's not working out with all these people. But then I'm seeing these women who are freaking bitches making these guys jump through hoops for them and creating drama and like they're sticking with those women.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell? Like, should I be acting like more crazy and dramatic? Because that's what men really want, is they want someone that they have to be constantly chasing after and putting out fires all the time but then I realize like, yeah, a lot of men do want that, but they're unhealthy men. It's an unhealthy man who wants something like that. Now, there should be a little bit of tension sometimes to keep things interesting. You shouldn't maybe go with the flow 100% of the time isn't ideal, and there's psychological reasons for that, but I think there are just too many people who are addicted to toxic behavior.
I am not a fan of overgeneralization based on gender or gender dynamics.
Yeah.
I will say, however, that I feel like there is a cultural monomyth, or whatever you want to call it, that men are supposed to storm the castle to rescue the princess from the dragon.
Right.
And that is our guiding philosophy for a lot of our romantic relationships.
Yeah.
And, you can get into subcategories of that where if you're the oldest child, you're the oldest male, there's expectations placed on you about having to be the leader of the family, the man of the house, yada, yada, yada.
Right.
So I do think like some of that is men feeling compelled to fulfill that expectation where we have to be the caretaker who puts up with a lot of shit. Every story is built on the 3-act structure of rising conflict that leads to the happy ending.
Right.
I do think that men are sort of conditioned by the movies like this one, where you put up with Meg Ryan's bullshit for 12 years and then you get the reward of having a relationship with her. I mean, again, I think she puts up with a lot of his bullshit too. And it's a two-way street. I'm not saying that Harry's like the hero and she's the villain or whatever. I'm just saying that stereotype, I think, is a stereotype for a reason, because it is what we are conditioned to do throughout the course of our lives. Men are always told to suck it up, that we should not express emotion because that will look like weakness. And I know that there's some cultural backlash about that in the last several years, but I don't think we've made a lot of progress. And I think, if anything, because of some of the backlash, that's sort of going to get worse before it gets better, where men are going to not be allowed to express emotion. And I've seen this on a lot of social media too, where a guy will be just chilling in the backyard drinking a beer and his wife comes out and is like, "What are you doing? Like, you're just staring in the backyard? Is that what you're doing with your day? You're just staring in the backyard with a beer." And he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm just trying to chill." And she's like, "Oh my God, can you believe this? Instagram?" And she's like talking to the camera and is
I've
like,
never seen any of those.
I've seen several of those kind of videos where the wife is flaming
annoying.
the dude because he's just trying to chill. And every person goes through the expectations of their family and their society and their relationships, blah, 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 where they need a moment. I just think that there is some cultural pressure for men to fulfill that prophecy.
Yeah.
That's a long-winded way of saying what I was trying to say.
Yeah. Agreed. For sure.
You agree that it was long-winded. Right. Got it.
No. No, I agree with the expectations part of it. Definitely.
So the movie is like 99% about Harry and Sally.
Right.
And then there's just a 1% side plot with Carrie Fisher and Bruno Kirby.
Props to Princess Leia.
Oh my God. It's so crazy that this movie happened, like 6 years after Return of the Jedi? And she goes from looking like she's 18 to like 35 in that span.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know why that is. In any case, I love the Carrie Fisher character that she's dating a married man. And every time she has a conversation with Sally, they constantly are having that debate of, she's like, "Well, I don't think he's ever going to leave her." And Meg Ryan every time is like, "Yeah, he's not." She doesn't sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
I think most friends would be like, "Oh, honey, maybe someday." I think there's a lot of people who would think they're being supportive by kind of baiting her along and just being like, "Yeah, sure, maybe it'll happen." But no, every single time both her and the other friend, who I don't even know is named and only appears in a couple scenes, they're just like, yeah, no, of course he's not going to leave her. Like, what are you, nuts?
Yeah.
I just love that.
Yeah. And interesting because in one of my favorite comedies, Drop Dead Fred, Carrie Fisher also plays someone who is with a married man. A little bit typecast there.
I mean, I do think Carrie Fisher was the kind of person who would date a married man in real life.
Yeah.
I don't know why I
that's
think that.
True.
It's one of the more accurate parts of the movie where the person who's dating a married man is living in a delusion that this person is going to leave eventually, and that they kind of just expect all their friends to accommodate that. And
Yeah.
I've been in those situations where I'm trying to help somebody through that, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't think it's a real good move. And for some reason, people are just convinced that no, even though we all know how that works, for some reason, they're going to be the exception to the rule. And they never are.
It's definitely a tricky situation. But I am the honest person that would say they're not leaving. There's no way.
Well, and I think that you had mentioned that they can be honest with each other, but I think because they don't like each other, right, they get to say things that that people who like each other wouldn't.
That's true. That's a good point, is maybe they're so honest because they already have this kind of antagonistic, and it's, there's no love lost. You know, it's like, whatever, you don't really care. It's interesting how we do say things in a different way to people that we don't like.
So much of life is the cultural pressure to keep you from saying what you need to say or want to say because of the baggage that comes along with it. Every work relationship has a certain amount of, you have to move past what you want to say and say what you are expected to say because they hold the power over your job and your medical benefits and all those things.
Right.
And so in relationships, it's the same way, where a girlfriend asks you a question. The age-old example is, do I look fat in this dress?
Right.
It's so boomery to even bring that up. But I've been asked that question, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do I look? You can't be honest in a lot of those cases because you need to preserve the relationship. And you know that person's not ready to hear the truth.
But here's the thing. I think if they ask you, there is a tactful way to say, I think maybe another style is more flattering, you know? But if women are happy with what they're wearing and they feel good, then there's no need to say anything because why change them? And if then it's a you problem, you know? If, like, you don't like the way they look in it, I mean, that's a you problem.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like I'm in very dangerous territory here, so I'm trying to choose my words very carefully. I don't know. It's a thing where I would want someone to point out to me if I was wearing something that could be a blind spot for me.
Right.
You can take that too far, where the last person I dated would constantly pick at everything I wore. Nothing was ever good enough. That goes too far.
Yeah.
And we don't want that.
If I'm wearing a skirt, let's say, that's so short that I'm not aware that when I bend over, you can see my whole butt or whatever, I would want someone to tell me because I'm a teacher, like I'm going to work. If my boyfriend was like, well, first off, he would actually love if I wore this. But
that skirt's a little cheeky.
Yeah, but he might gently say, oh, you know, just so you know, when you bend over, just be careful because when you bend over, like you can see everything because your skirt is so short. I think that kind of vibe is a little different than being like, oh, you know, that's not the most flattering on you. Or, you know what? You could just pull a Jimmy Stewart in Vertigo. I just showed that in my film class, by the way. And I was like, ladies, if a guy takes you shopping, it might seem cool, like Pretty Woman, he's buying it. But this is a whole level of creepy, right? So you could just pick out her wardrobe for her.
Yeah, if you make her dye her hair. And
make her dye her hair.
Tell her to walk a certain way. And...
But we should do something with Vertigo someday because it's creepy.
Not a lot of positive lessons you can take away from that movie.
No, but it is my favorite Hitchcock movie. So
I mean, it's an amazing film, but
it is.
I think that was one of the first films where I realized, oh, people in the past could be messed up too. There's this romanticization of the past, and Psycho and Vertigo and Rear Window were great examples of how, or The Apartment is another great one, where the adult themes that we kind of take as being modern life applied back then too. They just didn't always talk about them as openly.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, very true. So, are we ready to talk about what is at the heart of the matter here?
We have so many more things to talk about. We haven't gotten to all of them, and I feel like...
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because
but, yeah, we can.
Eventually we're going to talk about the age-old question of, can men and women be friends? But if you have more things to talk about as far as the movie itself, go ahead.
I mean, maybe I'll just rattle a few off.
Rattle a few off. I think I talked about everything that I wanted to as far as the movie was concerned.
Why do I always have more notes than you? Why do I always
I
have like
don't
5 times the
know.
amount of notes that you get?
I mean, we didn't talk about that famous scene that I'm not going to recreate. But I just remember that being a big deal.
Yeah. I mean,
like, no one's ever done this before.
I'm going to have a hot take on this scene.
Okay.
I think it's absurd.
It is a little absurd. Because she's, like, so loud about it in public.
Is a very reserved person.
Right, exactly, yes.
Who then, completely out of character, stages a public orgasm.
Right, it's very out of character. That's what bothered me, too.
It's extremely out of character.
Yeah.
And that she plays it off as just like, yeah, everybody should just deal with it. And I have heard from a friend that scene was improvised by Meg Ryan.
Oh, really?
I didn't look that up to verify it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She suggested adding that to the script, and I think it's just doesn't make any sense at all. If they had that conversation in the privacy of an apartment, sure. But
Right.
she would never, ever do that in public, let alone own it and just be like, yeah, everybody look at me.
No.
That scene is probably the one I like the least in the entire movie. And I think it's ironic that it became the cultural touchstone that it is because it's so just silly. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I mean, it's entertaining. And then, of course, I'm sure it had some sort of influence on the Seinfeld episode where Elaine talks about faking.
Yeah.
And Jerry's like, wait, but what about, because, they
You never faked with me, right?
Yeah. She's like, fake. Yeah. And it's just soul crushing to the man that, wait, I'm not as good as I think, because I think there's some insecurity. I mean, you could speak to that more, I guess, as a man.
I'm sorry, what? I can do what now? No, I think there again, it's the cultural pressure.
Right.
We are supposed to be Lotharios who can just rock a woman's world every time, and we're supposed to just literally change the way their brain works by how amazing we are in the bedroom. That pressure is unfair. And there are going to be side effects of that where if then men become worried about rating their performance in some form or another. And it takes maturity, I think, to kind of move past that and be like, sometimes it's not going to be there for one person or the other. And that's okay. The same thing happens in reverse. There's been times when things don't go the way you want, or it's just not, you're not feeling it that night. And the woman makes it all about them and is just like, well, what, am I not attractive enough? Like, why don't you, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, it's not about you. Just like bodies are not machines. I mean, they are machines, but they're not flawless machines that perform the way you want them to every single time. And sometimes you're just not going to be able to reach climax. For a lot of men, there are issues where they can't even get into the mood, whatever, whether it be related to medication or related to their health, whatever the reason. It's a cultural joke at this point, right?
Yeah.
From Friends is another great example where they talk about it's not okay. It is a big deal. It doesn't happen to everyone. And he's like, I know it. That's just about erectile dysfunction, but there's so many other aspects of sex that are equally problematic issues. So I think women should be honest and say, I'm just not feeling it tonight. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And you need to stop trying to make it happen because it's just not going to. And the same should be true in reverse. If a guy's just not into it that night and it's not working, you should just say, look, I care about you and it's going to be okay, but tonight is just not, the magic is not happening, and that should be okay.
Yeah, transparency for sure. Well, just like there's expectations for the man to be the lover and everything. For women, it is the pressure to be the desired object and to make ourselves look like the desired object. And look at how many products are sold to us every day in pursuit of that, and how much of your Instagram feed or whatever reinforcing that idea that you have to have a rockin' body, you have to wear lingerie, you have to smell good, you have to have your hair perfect, you have, that's the pressure that is on women going into those situations. But yeah, the whole faking thing, it's funny because,
By the way, I think that men have that exact same pressure. It just comes out in different ways. But anyway, go on.
Oh, like physical.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I
Like,
mean, I definitely know guys who are like, they're self conscious about like the way their stomach looks, or like they don't have the six pack abs. And
we could do a whole episode on that alone.
yeah, we should. Let's put it, you know.
I grew up with G.I. Joe, right?
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with Rambo, with Arnold Schwarzenegger, all these guys who have absurd physiques that are
Yeah.
cultivated through an absurd amount of diet and nutrition and trainers and constantly being in the gym and not having a real job.
Right.
Like things that are unattainable for most men, and yet we are conditioned by media to think that that's normal. Every guy you see take their shirt off on camera has just done like 1,000 crunches and has a personal trainer and a diet plan and all that kind of stuff that is not accessible for most of us. But that is what I think a lot of women are expecting. The fact that the word dad bod even exists implies that that is the exception, not the rule. There is just as much cultural pressure on us. We didn't read Cosmo, sure, but you see the movies, you see the TV shows, and I think the most crazy example was in The Good Place when the guy, I can't remember his name, Chidi, I want to say? I don't remember the actor's name either, but he's supposed to be like a philosopher and like working at a college, and he takes his shirt off and he's got like 0% body fat and is a bodybuilder. And it's just like, well, when do you have the time to do that when you're a tenured professor at the age of 33 or whatever it was? It's just
Yeah. See, I don't like muscly guy. I don't like too muscly.
Well-
like, I want them to like look good, but I mean, for me, there's not like pressure. I'm more, I don't know. It's not really, the body is not like the thing that I'm most concerned about. But it's interesting. So with like I don't remember what her reasoning is. Like, so I guess there's two reasons you could, as a woman, be faking, right? It could be that you're not in the mood and you're just like, let's just get this over with so that I'm going to pretend that like it's all good and so we can just be done with it.
Yeah.
Or it might be like, maybe they just don't want to hurt their feelings and they're not doing a very good job. They don't want to kill their ego, knowing that they're pressured to do this. So you're just like throwing them a bone and being like, let me be nice and just pretend that what he's doing is okay.
Sure, those are the reasons, but those are both flawed logic.
Oh, I'm not saying they're good.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I don't think you should fake.
Yeah,
I don't think you should.
Faking is a lie. You shouldn't lie to your partner, even if it's a well-intentioned lie.
Yeah.
And I think being able to have the kind of communication where you say, hey, it's nothing you're doing wrong. Or if you are doing something wrong, you got to learn how to communicate that that's not working for me and it never will. And I need something different. You need to be able to have that conversation as well. So I think either of those reasons are not, handling it by faking it is not the way to solve those problems.
No, if you think it's something that's like, you're not going to get past it and you're not going to stay with this person, at least make it better for the next person.
Yeah.
Let them know that
Right.
maybe your technique, maybe when you move on to the next person after me, try something different.
What a time to have that conversation. Like, hey, we're not going to stay together, but the next time you're boinking someone...
right. Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I
like,
do.
let them know just so that they don't keep making the same mistake, because they could be out there thinking they're doing a really good job, and a lot of people might suffer
True.
because of it.
All right, so we are way behind on time. Do we do a second episode on this, or do we just wrap it up rapid
I think
fire?
we need to address it all in one.
Okay.
Right? Like, can men and women be friends?
Let me rattle off some things before we get to that.
Okay.
So when Sally announces her breakup to her friends, Carrie Fisher says, "You mean Joe's available?" I thought that was hilarious. Not to mention that she pulls out her literal card file and is rattling through like who's available. There are some people, how difficult it is to find somebody where you're just like, oh, well, I will consider any possibility, including and up to this. There's a couple of quotes in here that I really liked. Some of the dialogue I thought was really good. I think it's Bruno Kirby and Billy Crystal are at the baseball game and they're talking, and he says, marriages don't break up because of infidelity. It's a symptom that something else is wrong. Bruno Kirby says that.
Yeah, I definitely, because we haven't addressed it yet, but Billy Crystal's character was married and he got cheated on.
Right. Billy Crystal's response is, oh yeah, well, that symptom is fucking my wife.
Yes.
That was just like the best possible response to that, because in those moments when you are hurt and emotionally damaged and you're worried if you're ever going to find love again, there are always those friends who get broad and philosophical, which is, normal and healthy to do. But they're kind of just like, yeah, don't worry. That's not the issue. You'll figure it out. You'll be fine. And you're just like, I'm in the very real moment that I just found out that my girlfriend is sleeping with somebody else. I don't care about the philosophy. I
Yeah.
don't care
Yeah, I
about.
mean, it was just, he was married to her, which
Yeah.
is crazy. So I agree. I think that was a great quote.
I like when they meet for the third time, Harry and Sally. There's a maturity.
Yeah.
In the first meeting, they're both extremely childlike. He is just kind of already trying to cheat on his girlfriend. He
Yeah.
doesn't care about her. He doesn't care about Meg Ryan. He doesn't care about anything. His entire packing is a duffel bag and a baseball bat.
Yeah.
Like, his life is very silly. And she is also hopelessly naive. But then by their third meeting, they're not bantering anymore. They're both sighing a lot and
Yeah.
exchanging the bad news of their relationships. And they start to become friends to each other because they're in these dark and sad times. And it just was really nice to see in a romantic comedy where they let that breathe. They let them have these down moments and it wasn't played for laughs.
Right.
I think the marvelization of a lot of current movies would be to undercut those moments with jokes. And
Right.
they kind of just allowed them to experience those emotions on the bluer side of the spectrum and didn't try to play it off for laughs. I really appreciated that.
What struck me about the third meeting was that I was thinking they're supporting each other now.
Yeah.
They're being very supportive and they're solidly there for each other, which you didn't see in the previous meetings.
Yeah. She says at one point, Sally, when she's kind of refusing to accept the reality of her ex going off and breaking up with her, I don't miss him. I miss the idea of him.
Yes.
That has been such a big deal for either myself or when I have counseled other people through breakups, is that you can miss somebody and not want them back.
Right.
You can miss what that person brought to your life, even though you know that that relationship will never work. And that is so devastating to realize in some cases.
Yeah.
There are people who are more interested in the idea of love than they are the actual work of a relationship and getting to that point. But I just thought that was kind of a poignant and simple way of saying it, but a really accurate one.
Especially when it's someone that you're hoping to marry, which she did want to marry this guy. You have this idea of this like fairy tale wedding and marriage and kids and everything. And that is an idea.
Yeah.
That's the American dream, right? To get married and have kids and live in the house with the white picket fence and have the dog and all of that stuff. And so I think she was partly talking about that aspect of like, this is who she wanted a future with. And that was the idea that she had in her head. And then it didn't match. And that can be devastating, as you said.
I love that at one point she says it might be months before we can enjoy going out with someone new and longer before we can go to bed with them. And Harry's like, oh, I went to bed with her. He's talking about going out on a date and she's in the mindset of you're processing your pain. And of course you can't sleep with anybody when you're in pain. And every guy is like, no.
Yeah, the gender differences here for sure. And, he is pretty open about the fact that she even says like, oh, you will sleep with anything that walks. Like you're just like going around screwing everybody. And she's more of the...
It has to be romantic.
It has to be romantic. You have to have feelings for the person. And again, it's a gender thing. But, before this movie, I don't know that other movies came out and really said that. Not that no other movie did it, but I think it was brought more to the forefront, like these discussions. The thing about the faking it, the thing about infidelity and vices people use, right, to like deal with their pain. I don't know that many other, at least romantic comedies, were dealing with all of those things. So I think that's why, even though it's a simple story and nothing earth-shattering really happens in it, that's maybe why it was such a hit.
It's very frank.
Very frank, yeah.
And I think that's refreshing because so many movies would have him have those conversations with Bruno Kirby instead of having them with her. And I think it's interesting to see her process the reality of what she's hearing, where she's just like, wait, what? That's how men think? I do wonder sometimes when he says all men think this way. And I don't know that that's necessarily true. Probably most, if not all. But it is just kind of interesting to see that play out because a lot of the female friends I've had over the years have appreciated getting the male perspective because they're so confused by male choices. For most men, it's pretty obvious what's happening. That's why that whole book, He's Just Not That Into You, even exists, is because like they put their energy where their interest is. I think this could be a whole episode in and of itself, which is what is the appropriate rebound time following a relationship ending. I have had very differing views on this depending on the relationship, depending on my year of life and the context, whatever. There's a lot of things going around on like social media that you have to take off a year in between every relationship. There's a lot of relationship gurus who will say something along those lines. You need to take 6 months to a year before you can even go on a first date. You need to go on a trip. You need to redecorate your house. You need to reconsider your entire life. I have never been like that. I believe you learn things about yourself through relationship. I think you heal through other relationships. I think you fail in other relationships in a way that is growth. I also don't super believe in a ton of personal growth, so there's that as well. It's just interesting to me how the Sally character, I think, would be that person who's like, you need to take your time and not jump into something right away, where I think the Harry character would be like, whatever. If it happens, it happens.
Yeah. Well, this is where I'm going to repeat my famous line. I'm not like other girls.
Yeah,
because
this was a sitcom,
when
that
my
would be your
3.5
catchphrase.
year relationship ended, he broke up with me on a Wednesday. I was already matching with people on the apps Saturday.
Damn.
Yeah. I think it really depends on so many different things as far as like the time, because there are people who their breakup happened 10 years ago and they're still not over it. And then there's people who just broke up with someone, because here's the thing, like for me, I was already 1 foot out the door. Even though he's the one that broke up with me, it was almost a relief because there had been problems for so long. I just didn't know what to do about the situation. And I was maybe a little bit chicken to do anything about the situation because I didn't want to be the bad guy, or I didn't want to give up, or I didn't want to fail. But it was in the back of my mind that this was not going to work out. I mean, for several years. So I think it really is dependent on so many different factors as far as how long you're going to be waiting until you get out there again.
I think one of the things that is hardest about rebounding is that you might think you are thinking and feeling and doing certain things in a certain way, and the reality is different. And other people can point that out better than you can because you're in it and you can't see clearly. So in my last breakup, I thought I was ready to get back out there pretty quickly. And only through dating did I discover I wasn't as ready as I thought I was. And things started to become apparent to me that I was not in a good headspace. And I don't even know if I am still, right? It's been almost a year. And there's certain things that they're not as healthy as they should be. And I'm trying to get there. I just think it's such a messy thing where some people will say you can just start dating right away, like, you know, yourself. Other people will say you need to wait and take time and process. And it's just like, there are other components too, where I think this is probably true for a lot of high sex drive people, where they might not want to go a year without having sex.
Right.
And so that creates a problem because you need to meet that need. And if you're not going to be healthy because, you know, whatever. So that's just one example, but there could be other things where like you might need an emotional component of the relationship that you're not getting if you're not dating.
Yeah.
And so you don't feel fully healthy and you can't be your whole self and yada, yada.
Yeah. I mean, what kind of, I think, helped me to get through it was that I have like I guess you'd say a life coach, you know, a little program in, and she's amazing. But I did get to the point where I was really upset about the breakup, and it all kind of hit me, and I was crying. I never cry, and I was like on a call with her crying. And she's like, you know what? I'm excited for you. I'm super happy for you. And I'm like, how can I be excited right now? Like, I feel like I just wasted 3.5 years. And she's like, no, I'm excited because now that person's gone, you can find the person that you're actually meant to be with. And that's exciting. And it really changed my perception. And now, really, anytime I face a setback like that, I frame it as, well, I'm excited because this thing clearly wasn't for me. Now I can go and find the thing that is for me. Maybe that's why I was able to move on. It was interesting though, because the first person actually that I started dating from Bumble, it was the whole summer. I might have talked about this before, but it was like 3 months. And when that didn't work out, because he truly was not ready because he had a lot going on. He finalized his divorce in the middle of us dating, and she had cheated on him, left him for their friend, bought a house with him. They had 2 daughters that now were living half the time with the guy that she, you know, so he had every reason to not be able to move on because this was like pretty fresh. But when that ended, even though it was 3 months versus 3.5 years, that was harder I took that way harder. I couldn't even think about this person without tearing up for months, which is not like me. But I realized it was more about me. It was more what he struck in me, because he was a very safe space. He was a very comforting person. He was a very calm person, but also very, very supportive. After my divorce and all of the, things that I had been through, it was like, wow, this person, more so than my boyfriend of 3.5 years really was emotionally. And I realized that's what it was. It wasn't really him as a person, because I don't think it would have worked out with him anyway, but it was what he represented to me, which was that safety and acceptance. And that was what was difficult. So I think sometimes it's not even about the person themselves. It's about what they kind of triggered in you. And that's why it's hard to get over it.
I believe that humans are meant to be in relationship. We are social animals. Mm-hmm. And when a relationship ends, you're like a magnet looking for metal. And whether you know it or not, you might latch onto something bad, you might latch onto something good. Again, this is a terrible metaphor. I can't think of a better one. Mm-hmm. But it's just so fascinating how so many people will say with such conviction that if you just follow ABC steps, that you will become a healthy person and then you will be ready to date again or be in a relationship again. Where I think that there's been so many relationships where, and I think one of the old couples in this movie is one of those. I think they met at the funeral or something of her last husband or something like that. There's been relationships that I've even heard of in real life where the person met somebody at their funeral and like, sure, you can step back and say like, oh, that's unhealthy. They never should have, but it works. And they're together for the rest of their lives, or they're together for a long time, and that works for them. Mm-hmm. And so I just think it's so tempting to be clinical and I can't think of the right word, like scientific about it, where you can just say, if you follow this framework, then you will be happy or healthy. And I think for most people, that's not the case. It's a messy, mixed up, confusing ordeal, and it's never a clear path from A to B. And then later, after you've been together for 50 years, then you write the story unintentionally and subconsciously that we were always meant to be together because ABC. But I think in reality, you're wandering on this crazy path in the dark woods and you don't know what's happening, and then suddenly you're in a relationship and it works or it doesn't. Anyway, I've got a ton of more notes. I'm just going to skip them all, I guess.
Do them all. Look, people love us.
The statistics say otherwise.
They can listen to us but here's the thing. I study all of this stuff. Long form content is very big right now. Teddy, what if someone's on a road trip right now?
Yeah.
They are driving across the country and they need someone to keep them company. They need us. Do it for those people, Teddy. Do it for them.
Okay. It's very inspiring.
That was my pep talk.
All right. Great job.
Because like Sally, I also am toxically positive.
That's true. So anyway, all right, I'll rattle through some more. There's a quote where she says, it's one of the old couples who is talking about how they got together. And she says, at that moment, I knew the way you know about a good melon, which I think is funny.
Yeah.
But first of all, that describes the problem with every romantic relationship I've ever had, which is I don't ever just know. Mm-hmm. The times when I thought I just knew is when they blew up the most spectacularly. The biggest breakups I've had that have been completely life-altering were because I thought I knew the good melon, and I did not know the good melon. And it turned out to be moldy. I know that those vignettes were written, but at the same time, I know that there's people who really believe that, and I was just jealous of anyone who has that kind of clarity because I've never had that in my entire life. I don't have it now. I never have. And whenever I have had it, it's been spectacularly wrong. Mm-hmm. When Harry and Sally meet, they're doing the karaoke in the store. I think they're in the Sharper Image store, or at least a store that's supposed to be like that. And Harry's ex comes over, Helen, I want to say.
Oh, yeah.
Who I think I recognized from Parenthood. I think she was the mom of the like overachieving child with Rick Moranis. Anyway, she comes over and introduces her new fiance or husband or whatever he is to Harry. And Harry's clearly like shook from that.
Yeah.
Just don't come over. Just don't come over.
Yeah.
In real life, if you see your ex in public, just keep walking.
Yeah.
Don't engage. I just had this recently where I saw someone in public, best friend of one of my exes. She had posted a job on LinkedIn. I applied for that job and said, hey, if you ever want to talk, I would be open to this. But I also knew it might be problematic because she's friends with my ex. Mm-hmm. I just was like, if I don't get an answer, fine. If I do get an answer, great. I don't have any beef towards my ex. I don't think my ex has any beef towards me. And so neither of us would have cared about me getting this job with this person. She never answered. And then I saw her in public. I'm with a group of friends. She comes over and is like, hey, so I got your message, but I just thought because of your ex, it wouldn't work. And I was like, okay. Why did you come over to tell me that? There's no reason. I know.
Yeah.
There's no reason to come over and just put that dot on the I or cross that T. Leave it alone. Just keep walking. Pretend like you didn't see me.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any reason to engage with that person. If you see your ex in public, why would you want to introduce them to the new person? What do you get from that? And even in the movie, as soon as they make the introduction, they just leave. So what have you done? Who did that help?
Right. And he was shook by it. I think he did a good job of portraying that.
Yeah, if you're going to be rude and break up with somebody, just commit to your rudeness.
Yeah.
Just leave it there. Oh, Sally gets the call from her ex that he's getting married, and she has her breakdown. Harry comes over to console her. He mistakes their sympathy for intimacy, and they end up sleeping together, and then that creates this whole chain of events that leads to them getting together. I thought that was very real in that most men are not great at doing the sympathy thing, especially when it comes to a woman. And I think that this gets to your question that you keep wanting to ask and I keep putting off, which is, can men and women be friends? And I think, let's say in a different scenario, Harry is in a relationship and he goes over and consoles his friend and the same thing happens. That is why so many women, and in reverse, so many men, are jealous of their partner having friends of the opposite sex. Is because if I go over and console my friend, who's a male, there is pretty close to zero chance that any romantic entanglement is going to happen as a result of that. There's also pretty close to zero chance that any male friend would actually call me for that kind of support. But
Right.
I think there is a reasonable fear that if a man and a woman are in that situation, mistakes can happen because you misinterpret things because men don't have that same emotional vocabulary that women have, or they're vulnerable and so they're making choices that they wouldn't otherwise make. They're drunk. There might be 100 different reasons why those mistakes can happen, but I do think that that is one of the most challenging aspects of a male-female friendship, is that there is opportunity, and if the one circumstance changes where, whatever the reason, you're drunk or you're emotionally vulnerable or you're different stages of life, whatever it could be the explanation, that there is the potential for that to happen, that is why people are jealous and afraid of the male-female friendship.
I think there's also a difference, just to clarify, since now we're going down the path.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference between when they have partners and when they don't. I think they might have even addressed that in the... Oh, yeah. Because she says in the beginning, oh, yeah, well, men and women can be friends only if both of them have partners, because then they're committed to other people and they... But I think he's like, no.
Yeah.
Let's say you're both single. So it's like, can you be friends? Yes, you can be friends. But they mean, like, can you be friends without physical things interfering or taking it to a physical level? Or but here's the thing. Who cares if you do? If you're both single and you're friends and you're okay with it, you're both like, hey, you want to do something and you're both okay with it, you're both consenting, then maybe that could help the friendship, if anything.
It changes the dynamic because
It
then
does change the dynamic, but...
Because then when those people each start dating somebody, now there are feelings involved that wouldn't otherwise have been present. So
Could be.
there's a guy and a girl, they're friends, they hook up a few times just because they're lonely or they need that need fulfilled, whatever. And then they each start dating somebody, or maybe the one person starts dating someone before the other person does. Now there might have been romantic feelings that have cropped up that are not being acknowledged. And so that creates a resentment or a rift in the relationship that doesn't get talked about because the one person's like, oh, I thought it was just, we were just being friends. And the other person's like, no, it meant something to me.
Yeah, I mean, it can definitely cause complications, but to have a blanket statement of men and women can never be friends, and then you can also be friends, I think it's easier if you aren't attracted to the person.
But as
sure.
Harry says, for most guys, even if the person isn't that attractive, in a time of need, they might compromise.
I don't know.
I have definitely made romantic entanglements with people I was not necessarily attracted to because I was in a bad place.
Okay, fine.
I think that is an accurate statement that Harry made.
Fine.
I will also say, I think the premise is, can men and women be friends? You're saying, can they be friends? Yes, they can. But when they hook up, it's not really a friendship by definition anymore. It is now a friendship with benefits, or it's now some kind of sexual relationship, as opposed to just being, I am not sexually engaged with any of my male friends. I never have been. I never will be.
Right.
And so I think that is what people are using to define friendship, in quotes, is that can you be friends without having sex with a woman or a male you are attracted to?
Right.
I think the premise of the movie is accurate, that it is always going to be something that hangs over the relationship. And I think it is difficult.
This has always been a tough one for me because I have mostly male friends.
And you've hooked up with all of them.
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I have not hooked up with all of my male friends.
Yeah.
I have many friends who have been my friends for decades, and it has not even crossed my mind.
Right. That's not the issue. Has it crossed their mind?
I don't know,
Right.
but they haven't indicated it. A lot of them are with someone that they're into them. Here's the other thing. If you're in relationships, or if one of you or both of you are in a relationship, I think one of the crucial things, trying to get to know the partner, because that makes it a little bit more safe. I did date, my college boyfriend had a lot of female friends, and that was something I hadn't really dealt with before. He was my third boyfriend, like long term. And my first two only had guy friends. They didn't hang out with other girls besides me at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I never had to navigate this thing. But it was college and they were living in the same apartments and everything. So I walked into a situation where he had a lot of these girl friends, but I had trust in them and I got to know them, and they actually became my friends too, and vice versa. He became friends with my friends to the point of they're still friends even when I'm not really still friends with them. He was just such a likable person. It was just very clear that it was just a friendship, and they would also talk about me and they'd say, we're really happy for you. So I think if you're making an effort to get to know the partners, it adds another element of you don't want to cross that line, because when someone's just a concept, you have a girlfriend, but I've never met her, there's no skin in the game. But if I meet her, it's going to be a lot harder for me to like...
It's harder to cheat on somebody you've met.
That person.
Yeah.
You know, it makes you maybe feel bad. So I think if you're cultivating relationships, look, if this person is really important to you and they're a really good friend of yours, you're going to want to know at least a little something about who they're with. And I think it is important to do that so that it just defines it a little more, and to put the other person at ease, to let them know you're a safe person. You're not trying to steal person away or anything like that. So I think that definitely helps.
Okay.
So I try to do that with my male friends, but I had really bad experiences with female friends. I have a couple female friends who they're wonderful, but they're also kind of more like they get along with men better too.
Mm.
But I find the fact that men are so just obvious. They don't play, I mean, I guess they do play games sometimes, but you know, I find that men as friends aren't quite as maybe manipulative or sensitive. If a guy friend asks to hang out, I'm like, oh, you know, I'm doing something else, they'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Whereas a girlfriend might analyze that.
Yeah.
Like, why doesn't she want to hang out with me? What is she doing? Is someone else more important? And I know this because I've heard girls say things like this, and it's a little less complicated with guys. Like, they're very, like, upfront about things.
Yeah.
And I'm a very upfront person, so I just gravitate toward male energy more. It's also, like, the worlds that I'm in. You know, I'm in the music industry, partly, and I work with a lot of musicians, and quite frankly, 90% of them are men. I mean, we try to get female performers whenever we can, but it's just a lot of dudes. And I'm very used to the way they communicate, not taking things personally, because sometimes some musicians, they don't want to chit chat or whatever. They're just like, okay, let's get the sound check. Let's da-da-da. I think some women couldn't handle that energy because they take it personally if they're like, this doesn't sound good, blah, blah, blah. You know, you just have to be more, I don't know what the word is, logical? Or more just, not logical, but you know what I mean. Upfront about things.
Yeah.
And not take it personally. I think that's the thing that I appreciate about my male friends is they can all call me up. Like you were talking about the female friends being blindly supportive. If they're friends with a married guy, they might say, oh, one day he'll leave. Whereas like I appreciate my guy friends because they'd be like, no. And when I was dating a lot, I really leaned on my guy friends to tell me, like, no, this person, this is like not a good situation. Whereas I do have to say, like, I'd tell girlfriends about certain things, certain guys, and they would be like, well, give it some time. And the guys were like, no. And I appreciate that candor. I really like that. So I think that it really just comes to, like, I don't necessarily see gender that way. I see, like, wow, I have so much in common. We can talk about things, right? Like, so for us, for example, we both love movies. And we maybe don't have as many people in our lives that are on the level that we are of watching movies, analyzing movies, being like geeking out over movies. I don't have one female friend who geeks out about movies or even music the way that I do. And so I need that. Like, I need to bounce those things off of somebody. So if you find somebody like you can talk about those interests with and have really deep conversations, and then I can text, like, if I see a movie, I can text you and be like, oh my god, did you, because we do that, right?
Yeah.
Like, did you see, and you'll be like, oh yeah, I thought it was crap or whatever, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, that is usually what I say.
And it is, it's usually, I mean, maybe oversimplifying, but yeah, a lot of times you'll say it was crap. So when I watch something, I automatically defer to, like, I wonder what Teddy thinks about this.
Yeah.
And that's just like a different dynamic than I have with other people.
If we were in a clinical environment where there is no other partner involved, can a man and woman be friends and there's no sexual component? Sure. But I think it is much more likely for it to be a mental factor for the man that they would violate the friendship boundary and take it to a sexual place. In most cases. I think there are definitely women out there with higher sex drives, right, who would prove a different rule. Let's not get caught up in the details. Broadly speaking, men are more sexually driven, and I think will complicate that relationship or even damage the relationship by introducing sex and are okay with that. Whereas in my experience, many women would think that the males are not interested in them sexually and they put them in the quote unquote friend zone, and that's okay with them, but the men are either hurt by that or want to change that, whatever. So I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier about what you can say and not say and the cultural expectations, and that a lot of times men are saying what they think the woman wants them to say. I've seen this play out where I was dating somebody, we break up, and the guy friends that she says were just friends all hit on her in the same weekend.
No, I get it. I get that happens.
But she was adamant that they were just friends and they don't see her like that. And I'm just like, you are blind as a bat. And then the moment we break up in the same weekend, all three of them reach out and offer some sort of, oh, do you want to come over kind of thing when they've never invited her over before. I just think that it's real messy. I'm not saying it can't happen. I just think there's a lot of complications, and the older you get, I'm sure for some people it's easier to look past those complications because adult relationships are hard and complex and messy. But I think for other people, it's probably harder to have those relationships because life gets in the way, or you start dating someone or you get married to somebody who is extremely jealous, and you're accepting that 90% of them is great, but the 10% of them that is a challenge is that they are so jealous of your female friends or whatever.
Well, look, you have to have trust and you have to have boundaries. Are you maybe sometimes going to be attracted to the other person? Maybe, like, but I think even that's okay if you're not acting on it and you still have the boundaries. Because I think it's very naive to say that you're never going to find anyone attractive once you're in a relationship. And the other thing is, a lot of women especially are so jealous about any other woman finding their guy attractive. It's like, why would you want to be with somebody who no one else thinks is attractive?
Yeah.
To me, that seems pretty terrible. To me, it's almost like a compliment for me if someone finds my partner attractive, because it's like, yeah, I got this person. If it was someone that no one wanted.
There's definitely two types of people in the world. There's that person, and then there's, on the other side, the person who's just like, I don't want anyone to look at my partner. I don't want anyone to flirt with my partner.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't want my partner engaging those people back.
Yeah.
Whereas the first person is probably okay with flirtation and whatever, as long as it doesn't cross a line. Whereas the second person is just like, any indication of interest is enough to have a huge fight over and maybe even break up over. I do think that there's a division.
I think where things do get hairy and...
Get it, Harry?
Yeah. Oh, you're so clever.
Aren't I?
is when your partner asks you to not be friends with your friend.
Yeah.
And I definitely have an issue with this. For example, we have although we're overdue for a movie night.
Yeah.
But you come and we have dinner and a movie, and that was like already established. So when I started going out with my boyfriend, and he was like, oh, just that's totally cool that you still have that, and like, fine. And I was like, what do you mean? Like,
I wasn't asking.
Well, I'm sure he was used to like maybe people who would have had a problem with it. So it was very nice that he was saying, hey, don't feel like you have to stop doing that because of me. But I think my response was, well, I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
Like, this is another issue, right? Like, you were grandfathered in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? However, I will say, because I do follow some influencer type people who talk about healthy relationships, and they're kind of like, if you're in a relationship and you're out there looking for more friends that you're attracted to, maybe that's a problem. But I feel like your friends who are already established, because there are people who, like, they've been friends with someone from high school and it's been 20 years and their partner's like, no, cut that person off. And they just started dating. And they're like, I'm not going to stop being friends with someone I've been friends with for 20 years.
Yeah.
Because I met you a couple weeks ago. To me, that's a problem. And because I've always been adamant, like, men and women can be friends, you can do whatever you want, blah, blah, blah. But, like, listening to some of these content creators that are out there, the reason they give is, like, you're giving a piece of yourself emotionally, even if there's no physical thing, to that other person. And even if you don't realize it, it might be detracting from your relationship. And also, they start to be a sounding board. I have to say, I've done this in the past, right? Where then you just like kind of defer to your friend and are like, oh, my boyfriend is being so annoying, or, or vice versa. And like this particular guy I follow was saying that can lead you down a dangerous path, because every time you're upset, instead of dealing with it with your partner, you're going to your friend who's just a friend and complaining about it. And then that also plants the seed of, oh, maybe they're gonna break up, maybe it's my time. And so I do recognize that, and I have to say, I'm not as adamant as I am about like, I'm friends with all the guys, whatever. I haven't found myself trying to be friends with new guys, right? Mm-hmm. And I have a very full life, and I have a lot of friends already. If anything, I have to like dig deeper into my current friendships and give more time to them. So I'm not out looking for like other dudes to be friends with at this point. So I can see that. If you're in a relationship, you have the friends who are grandfathered in, but maybe you shouldn't be out there looking for all kinds of other friends. I don't know. Unless it like happens naturally. I've had work husbands, but I was friends with his wife. We'd hang out, whatever. But I think work is one of those things where you're put into situations where you're under stress, you need to vent to somebody. So that might be where you naturally make friendships, but I would say maybe you shouldn't be going out trying to find friends like that are of,
I mean, it's so simple and so probably cliche at this point, but I think you just have to communicate.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's certain people who are not going to be okay with it, and you're going to have to decide whether you can be okay with them not being okay with it.
Yeah.
And there's other people who are totally chill with it on one half of the relationship, and the other half isn't. It's negotiation of just, well, if we set these boundaries, will that satisfy your fears? It's a mess. It's challenging. I don't think there's a clear answer that you can just say, like, yes, men can always be friends with women and there is no sexual component. I don't think you can say the inverse either. I think there are exceptions to the rules. I just have example after example from my life where I thought I was friends with a woman and then it turned sexual, or I wanted it to turn sexual and it didn't. Every flavor of ice cream out there I have, had in my relationships. So I just don't think there's a good, clear, easy answer for this one. And I think everybody has to decide for themselves the situation, whether it will work or not. And the one that works for somebody is not going to work for somebody else. You might be totally fine with your boyfriend having female friends, but he might not be thrilled with you having male friends, and that's just going to have to be something you work on. Or it's like, we only hang out when we're all together, or, maybe you have to set these boundaries. I don't know. And I don't know what the right answer is. I just know that it's a messy mess. And
well, then there's, the other situation is the Jerry and Elaine situation, which is you start as dating and become friends. Yeah. Is that harder, or I don't know. Are we gonna finally say?
You can, yeah, if you want.
I don't know if our listeners, all of our many, many, many listeners
Yeah, all three of them.
Just
probably already
wondering.
Know.
It's just plaguing them. What's the dynamic? What's the context? So Teddy and I did start out dating. Didn't work out. We don't have to get into all that. There was a point, my ego was really hurt, and I could have been like, what a jerk, and blah, blah, blah. There was a moment. I did get a little snippy. Like, you reminded... It's funny, because recently you reminded me of, like, some of the... I was like, I didn't say that. And I was like, oh, yeah, I think I did say some of those snippy things.
You didn't take it super well.
But you know what? Like, I loved the foundation of the things we had in common. And I really didn't want to lose that, And you were one of those people. You meet someone and like, I knew that you were a different person than some of the other people that I was meeting.
Right. I'm not like other girls.
Yeah, you're not like other girls. Yeah, and I think there was just like a really good foundation there that I didn't want to lose. I just had this instinctual feeling that I should keep that open. And I'm so glad that I did, because, it's been like 2.5 years now, which is crazy.
Oh
I'm gonna get a little bit sappy here.
Calm down.
Because since then, I have been through a lot of things. And I think having you as a support has been really meaningful to me. And also getting to know your son and vice versa, and doing things together. Like the four of us, like I love our little family outings. My son, who's 17, he's very wary of people. And you're actually the only person he ever met of anybody that I dated after the 3.5-year relationship. And I don't take that lightly. I wasn't like, okay, every random person. And when I tell you, like, he hit it off with you right away. He loves hanging out with you. And I'm so glad, because now I do have him full time. His dad moved for a job. And so to have that male presence and to have someone that he really, really gets along with and likes hanging out with your son as well, and just like doing these things together has been really great. And it's something that I would never want to lose, that because you're a guy, like I'm not allowed to have that in my life. So I really appreciate it. So I think we're we're proof, and like we vent to each other about different things, obviously, and dating, and that's kind of the whole reason why like we decided to do this podcast, is that we were just like, naturally having conversations about it. And I think some of your other friends were suggesting, hey, like you have a lot to say about this. Why don't you start talking about it?
It was probably more they were just tired of hearing about it. Yeah. Like, just God, just
let that other bitch deal with
it. Go have a podcast and just shut up. For the love of God.
And so we are opposite in that I do feel like things kind of happen for a reason, or like are destined to happen. But I do feel like doing this podcast, I spent a good time of my youth doing radio shows. I was in radio. I had a talk show very much like this. And I really missed, being in a studio and recording and just talking about things and communicating, which is my number one thing. Like, it's the thing I love the most in life. And so the way that it kind of naturally happened that way and progressed that way, I think is really special. And it's like getting me back to that person that I was back then. And I want to do even more of it. But I talk about you even to like my other friends so fondly. And my boyfriend recognizes that too. I don't think I could be with him if he was like, oh, no. He actually wants to hang out with you, more. And he listens to the podcast and really, really loves it. And he thinks you're hilarious. Yeah, I wouldn't want to just write that all off because it's like, oh, well, he's a man. I can't have all what you and your son bring to my life and my son's life. It's like a very special thing that I don't take for granted at all. And I'm really glad that even though it happened in kind of a weird way, it's kind of the only way it could have happened, right? Because like, I don't know that I'd meet you randomly out and our kids would be like hanging out. Like, I don't think that would happen. So I think it kind of had to happen that way. Now, our story might be like the exception to the rule, right? But I guess my point is men and women being friends, it can be a complicated thing, but sometimes it also can bring in like so many beautiful things to your life that you maybe wouldn't have otherwise. So I'm a fan.
That was a beautifully said soliloquy. I had nothing prepared and I feel very
and
inadequate.
And you don't have to. I just appreciate it. I appreciate you.
Well, the feeling is mutual. I've enjoyed doing this with you. It's been a lot of work, but it's been very rewarding to discuss the things that we've discussed. I feel like you said, we were talking about it all the time anyway, so we just kind of started
Yeah.
recording while we were having these conversations. But I do think you're right in that our friendship is proof that it can work. I just think for most people, that is not the norm, right? That is a much more complicated question than just, yeah, we went on some dates, we decided it wasn't going to work, and we ended up becoming friends, right? Like, for a lot of people, that would be too big of a hill to conquer. And for a lot of other people, if you had a different boyfriend, he might not be okay with us talking at all.
Oh, absolutely,
And so
yeah.
it could have gone a lot of different ways. And in our case, we are lucky that it didn't work out that way. But I just think it's going to be a different answer for every single person who happens to hear this conversation. Or I also really value our friendship. And I don't have as many words to say about it, so I feel bad. And also, I don't think your son warmed up to me right away. He took a while. He's a smart kid and he's guarded. And
He is guarded, yeah.
He was chill with me, but it took him a while to engage me in conversation or whatever, which I felt like it was a major victory when he did.
That's just how he is.
Yeah,
He
but
doesn't like run
you
up
just
to...
said like, oh, right away he latched on. I'm like, no, he didn't. It was a little bit of a challenge.
Well, I mean, from my perspective, and it's funny because he was talking to my mom, I guess a couple days later, like they were downstairs and I was upstairs, and I overheard my mom saying, oh, what did you think of mom's friend or whatever? And he was like, I liked him a lot better than my boyfriend of 3.5 years. He's like, yeah, he's like much cooler and whatever.
Mom
and
is just terrible at picking people, so.
it was really funny, like, to overhear him say that. But again, I'm a Seinfeld freak, I love Seinfeld. The Jerry and Elaine dynamic, because what I love about them and the stage that like we've gotten to is that with Jerry and Elaine, it's almost like they got that out of the way, because it couldn't work conversely. Like if you're already like romantically involved with somebody and then you're like, no, that's not gonna work, then you can kind of like put it to the side in a way. Like, that could be an advantage. I feel like we didn't have to pretend with each other. Like, we didn't have to be like, last episode you were kind of joking about how you can just wear sweats or whatever because it's like, it's just me.
Yeah.
And that's how Jerry and Elaine are. Like, they talk about like all their dates and stuff like that, and they'd be like into someone and they're like, oh yeah, but you're just you, whatever.
Right.
But that's what made them so endearing and made that relationship so special. So that's what I love about us. Again, if anyone was just wondering.
No one was wondering. Nobody
No.
cares. Nobody's even listening. We're talking to ourselves. All right, we got to wrap this up. We are at 2 hours.
Okay, yeah.
To anyone who is listening, all 5 of you, thank you for being
thank
there for this season. And I'm sure we'll be back at some point, whenever that is, whenever I get the urge to start editing again.
Props to you, Teddy, because, I am very technologically challenged. I don't know how to do this stuff. And you're very, very thorough. I think you're more thorough than you need to be. I think you should just,
Yeah, it's a pathology.
loosen up.
Yeah, but anyway, really appreciate anybody who's hung around for this, and we hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, bye-bye.